School board meeting into session, and so colleagues, the first item of agenda business is 2.1, and that will be changes to the agenda, and then I'll ask for a motion. So let me read these very quickly. We have consent agenda item 8.12 ITB 19-08 canopy bid district-wide was moved to discussion agenda at the request of board member Mr. Destin. Discussion agenda item 10.1 ITB 19-08 canopy bid district-wide would be those changes to the agenda. So I'm looking for a motion, colleagues.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bryant, second by Mr. Destin. Any discussion? Hearing or seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. All right, so as we move down, we're showing no recognitions tonight, no visitors, but we do have several administrative appointments. And so, Mr. Chambers, I know you'll be on cue for these, and so 5.1 will be the appointment of Director, Exceptional Student Education and Student Services recommended by Superintendent Chambers for approval. Mr. Chambers.
All right, good evening.
Good evening.
So I bring before you Dr. Heather Willis-Doxey. Dr. Heather Willis-Doxey is excited to join the Okaloosa County School District and have the opportunity to serve as the Director of Special Education. Dr. Willis-Doxey holds a bachelor's degree in elementary education from Flagler College, a master's degree in special education from Florida State University, which that is fantastic, and a doctorate degree in both special education and in educational leadership from Nova Southeastern University. She recently went back to school to pursue a graduate certificate in dyslexia from the University of Florida. We'll let that one slide. She has earned her ESOL endorsement and is certified in elementary education, special education, and educational leadership. Dr. Willis-Doxey has served as both a general education and special education teacher and as an instructional staff developer, where she specialized in behavior and academic interventions as an MTSS coach and provided professional development to new teachers while supporting a teacher mentor program. She has taught special education courses at the college level and served as a college intern supervisor. For the past 4 years, Dr. Willis-Doxey has worked for the Florida Department of Education as an ESE reading specialist and most recently as the Deputy Director of Just Read Florida. Dr. Willis-Doxey is committed to ensuring that all students achieve their greatest potential. She has provided technical assistance and training across the state of Florida to district and school leadership teams, higher education faculty members, academic coaches, teachers, and parents on multiple topics, including dyslexia, universal design for learning, implementing a multi-tiered system of supports for all students, positive behavior supports, and academic interventions, inclusive education, and a variety of other topics. In addition to her professional background, Dr. Willis-Doxey believes in investing in the community she lives in. She helped start and oversee a ministry to serve the special needs population and their families. She and her husband, Jeff, adopted a sibling group of 4 from foster care in Florida, each with a special needs, and have been blessed with 2 additional children, one age 2 and one age 1. Their family looks forward to being fully involved in the school district and our community.
Very good, Mr. Chambers. Looking for a motion, board members.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Destin.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Bryant. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Welcome, Dr. Doxey.
Hi, thank you for welcoming me, everybody. I'm very excited to join the Okaloosa County School team here and bring our giant family to fill your schools. And we're excited, looking forward to diving right in. We'll be here on Monday, ready bright and early for summer camp, daycare, and reporting for duty. So I look
Awesome.
forward to working with you all and meeting each one of you.
Well, congratulations again.
Bringing the crew up if you
Whole family's got to come up.
Sandwich on it.
Tim, I'm gonna pass the gavel to you
Yes, sir.
now, and then you can read fine.
Okay.
Turn it over to him.
Yes, sir.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. We're going to move on to item 5.2, and that's the appointment of Assistant Principal 1, Choctawhatchee High School, recommended by the superintendent for approval. Mr. Chambers?
And I bring before you Mr. Ryan Lanfer. Ryan Lanfer, originally from Blue Springs, Missouri, moved to Okaloosa County in 2012 and has been a part of Choctawhatchee High School ever since. Mr. Lanfer previously earned his bachelor's degree in English education at Peru State College, where he also finished his baseball playing career before becoming a graduate assistant. Upon his move to the Sunshine State, he quickly joined the Choctaw family as an English teacher and served as the head baseball coach, positions he thoroughly enjoyed the past 7 years. Mr. Lanfer's time and experience in the classroom inspired him to pursue a future in administration. He continued to follow the path of being a lifelong learner by completing his master's degree in educational leadership from the American College of Education in 2018. Mr. Lanfer met his wife, Erin, in 2012, and they married in 2016, and together they have a beautiful daughter, Ava Grace. He is extremely excited for the opportunity to continue his career as a Big Green Indian and looks forward to growing as an educational leader. Mr. Ryan Lanford.
At this time, do I have a motion for this appointment?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, and do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Congratulations.
Thank you. And Dr.
I'll be
White,
passing that
if
over.
you'd join me up here.
Okay, okay, all right.
Mary, that was a 5-0 vote, so I didn't say that. So.
Thank you for having me. I just would like to thank a few people. Obviously, I would like to thank the board. I would like to thank Mr. Chambers and Ms. Heck for really showing their confidence in me moving forward as an administrator. I would also like to thank Ms. Gates, who brought me into the Choctaw family 7 years ago and has allowed me to catapult myself into this opportunity. And I genuinely look forward to this opportunity and making the absolute most of it and continuing my career as a Choctaw Indian. And lastly, I would like to thank my wife, Erin, and Ava, who she's super excited. So thank you.
All right, please continue, Mr. Chambers. I think you've got item 5.3, appointment of Assistant Principal 1 for Niceville High School.
Yes, sir. So I bring before you Mr. Ryan Gore. Ryan Gore is a product of the Okaloosa County School District. He attended Mary Esther Elementary School, Bruner Middle School, and graduated from Fort Walton Beach High School. After high school, he attended William Carey College, where he earned his bachelor's degree in education. Additionally, he has a master's degree in educational leadership from the University of West Florida. After graduating from college, Mr. Gore taught math and coached football and track for 2 years in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. In 2004, he decided to return home and continue his career in Okaloosa County, where he taught math for 2 years at Ocean City. Additionally, he has had the opportunity to serve as the Title I and homeless specialist for 2 years, a program director in information systems for 5 years, and as a high school assistant principal.
Very good. Looking for a motion, colleagues?
I'll move.
Motion by Dr. Kelly,
I'll second it.
second Ms. Evancheck. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. And unless Mr. Gore is back
Ready to move forward?
from Africa,
Okay.
we can move forward.
All right, so moving forward to 5.4, appointment of Assistant Principal 2, Destin Middle School. Superintendent?
Thank you, sir. I bring before you Mr. Carl Schroeder. Carl Schroeder is a proud product of the Okaloosa County School District, attending Edwins Elementary School, Bruner Junior High School, and Fort Walton Beach High School. After he graduated from Fort Walton Beach High School, he attended the University of Southern Mississippi and earned a bachelor's degree in biology and physical science and athletic administration/coaching. He began his career in education teaching science at Bruner Junior High School, then taught biology and coached wrestling, weightlifting, track, and 2 state championship football teams at Fort Walton Beach High School during his 12 years there. He then moved to Central Florida to become a 6A head football coach and educator in Osceola County, Florida. While in Osceola County, he received Osceola County's Dean M. Cherry Coach of the Year Award and the Central Florida Citrus Bowl Coach of the Year Award. In addition, while in Central Florida, he taught anatomy and physiology and served as a student pastor for 7 years. In 2014, he earned a master's in educational leadership from the American College of Education and moved back to the Panhandle to teach biology and anatomy and physiology while coaching football and track at Walton High School. In 2016, he returned home to Okaloosa County as a dean of students at Baker School, then assistant principal of Meigs Middle School. In his spare time, Mr. Schroeder enjoys spending time with his wife, Terry, his 3 children, and especially his grandchildren, Chase and Olivia.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers. Looking for a motion?
I'll move it.
Motion by Mr. Destin,
I'll second it.
second by Mr. Bryant. Any discussion? All right, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Mr. Schroeder.
I want to thank each of the board members for having confidence in me, Mr. Chambers, Ms. Lightbourne. Also, I want to thank my beautiful wife, 31 years. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank all the people that's helped me along the way. I don't think we get here by ourselves. Mr. Russell Hughes from Walton County, Mr. Martello from Baker, and Ms. Heck. See that in the back? It really taught me how to learn and how to grow, and I'm looking forward and excited about Mr. Myers having confidence in me and working again with him as we worked at Fort Walton Beach way back in the day. So very excited about being a Destin Middle School.
Very good. Congratulations again, Mr. Schroeder. All right, Superintendent, you have one more here that I'm showing. 5.5, appointment of Assistant Principal 2 for Riverside Elementary School, recommended by Superintendent Chambers. Mr.
Thank you.
Chambers.
Last but not least, I bring to you Miss Lori Wagner. Okaloosa Schools have been home to Miss Wagner for 46 years, beginning when she started at Shalimar Elementary as a 4-year-old kindergartner. Miss Wagner also attended Cherokee, Longwood, New Heights, the Learning Center, Meigs, and graduated from Baker School in 1986. From there, she earned a bachelor's degree in education from the University of West Florida in 1989. Ms. Wagner spent 25 rewarding years teaching 3rd through 12th grade students at Laurel Hill and Baker schools. She provided gifted resources for students in K through 12. During these years, Ms. Wagner was named School-Wide Teacher of the Year twice and selected as a 2007 Okaloosa County School District Teacher of the Year finalist. She enjoyed visiting other schools as a professional development presenter and as a member of the district's teacher communication group as we introduced our current teacher evaluation system. She was selected as one of 2 district teachers to serve on the Florida Item Bank and Test Platform Work group as we transitioned towards FSA. For 2 years, Ms. Wagner served as a district ELA instructional coach, supporting curriculum and instruction needs, and presenting professional development to the teachers of Walker and Southside primary schools. After completing a master's degree in educational leadership, she was blessed to continue serving Walker as the assistant principal for 2 wonderful years. Ms. Wagner is appreciative for the eagerness of the staff to grow through collaboration and professional learning, and will take away fond memories of Walker's innovative teachers. Ms. Wagner's professional path continued to teach her wholeheartedly to embrace the challenges that lie ahead.
Thank you, Superintendent. Looking for a motion?
It is my honor to make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Bryant.
I'll second.
Ooh, that was close. I'm going to defer to Dr. Kelly. All right. Dr. Kelly has a second there, so any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Superintendent? Congratulations.
Good evening, Board, Mr. Chambers. I so wholeheartedly appreciate the confidence that you have in me to continue to serve with our school district. I'm looking forward to serving alongside Ms. Curley and her staff at Riverside, and I do consider it a very high privilege and honor to do this. So thank you for your approval.
Congratulations again.
Welcome to the family.
Very good. All right, so before we move into our business section at this time, I'll declare a 2-minute recess for folks that may have dinner appointments. Okay, I'm going to be starting in about 30 seconds. Reconvene. All right, I'm going to go ahead and reconvene this school board meeting and call us back into session at this time. So we're moving on to section 6 on public comment. I do have 2 blue cards that have been submitted. And so let me read these cards. The first one is for Ms. Samantha Lambert. Ms. Lambert? And Ms. Lambert lives in Fort Walton Beach, and she is going to speak to the referendum to change the selection of the superintendent. Welcome, Ms. Lambert.
Hi.
We give folks 4 minutes
Okay.
when they come to the podium, and I think you had a chance to look over the guidelines on the back of the
Yes, I
card,
did.
so you're familiar.
Okay.
So at this time, Mr. Bryant's going to keep time. So when you're ready, go ahead.
All right. My name is Samantha Lambert, and I'm an Okaloosa County resident. I'm also a product of the school system Choctaw class of 75. I'm also a retired 35-year educator in another state where I worked my whole career under an appointed or hired superintendent. Moving back here a few years ago, I was saddened by the state of the schools here. Not only the controversy with the superintendent, but also the physical state of the schools and teacher morale. I am here as a member of Yes for Okaloosa Schools to urge you to put a referendum on the March 2020 ballot to allow the voters of Okaloosa County to change the way the superintendent of schools is chosen, from elected to appointed or hired. I have a question. What is the purpose of a school board if the superintendent is elected? You have no control over the superintendent. He or she should work for the school board and the students and the teachers and the staff, not the other way around. I did some research on the roles of superintendents and school boards. On many of the sites I looked at in different states across the country, the following was stated, quote, "School board governs the district, superintendent advises the board and manages the district. School board is the superintendent's boss. Superintendent implements the school board's visions. The prerequisite to run as an elected superintendent in Florida requires no experience in education. Until a person has been in a classroom with 28 students of varying degrees of intelligence and behaviors, a person has no idea how to govern a school system. Plus, I think a superintendent should have experience as a principal and assistant superintendent before becoming superintendent of a school district. In many districts, the requirement is also to have been a superintendent for a smaller district. And yes, I know this district has been an A+ school system the past few years, but I credit the teachers for that. People worry about losing their vote if the school board hires a superintendent. However, in the 2016 superintendent election, only 29% of the voting populace of the county voted. Is that really a true representation of what people want? So those people would rather have a superintendent voted in by a small contingent of the population rather than by a knowledgeable school board with input from the community to appoint a superintendent who is qualified for the job. By the way, we appreciate the research that is done to find qualified people for other positions in the system. It should be up to the school board with input from the community to make a wise choice on who would best serve the county in the role of superintendent. When choosing a new football coach in Okaloosa County, the position is publicized in and outside the county. There is then an interview process and input from administrators, teachers, and parents to choose the best candidate. Shouldn't we be doing the same thing to find the best individual to lead the school system for our children's education? Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Lambert.
Thank you.
Stand by for a moment in case any of the colleagues here have questions or comment. Anything, folks?
I do.
Okay, Ms. Evanche.
So you were in another state where you had an appointed or hired, okay, a
Yes.
non-elected
Yes.
superintendent. So what did you see as the biggest difference in the way the school system operated in what you've seen with Okaloosa?
Well, first of all, it was a much bigger school system, so of course there were like 11 school board members. They also hired a company to,
I got a reaction
go
out
out.
of me.
What?
I said, they got a reaction out of
11
me.
school board
11.
members is what he's
Yeah,
reacting
to a consulting firm to look for the best candidate. And so there were many over 35 years. There were, a couple that came from out of state. The last one before I retired actually was a product of the school system, but had been a superintendent in another state in a smaller district. So I think there were less, seemed to me there were less assistant superintendents, in the system that I was in. So.
Okay, and you're with the group, right? Yes, for Okaloosa Schools?
Yes.
Okay. So in the process of getting this as a referendum, there's a cost factor.
Right.
Okay. So has your group considered who would be paying that?
I think that the leader of our group had addressed this as far as with the statutes in the state of Florida. I don't know the specific language right offhand, but I know he has researched that.
Well, I know he's researched it, so it could actually be paid by a lot of different ones, but what I'm saying is has your group talked about as a group bringing this up? I know when we did the half-cent sales tax in the past, that group was going to fund, am I right? Correct me if I'm wrong, fund putting it on the ballot. So I'm asking you, has your group talked about coming up with those funds so that it would not be on the board or this district to have to pay for that? No. Okay. Because that would be a concern. I think it's a fairly nominal fee from what I'm hearing and all that.
Right.
All right. And then have you done any official polling of the citizens of this county about this topic?
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay. Have you done any just informal? kind of-
Just in talking to people and social media, things like that. I think a lot of it is once you explain it, how it works. And again, I think probably most of you know that Florida and Alabama are the only states in the country that still elect superintendents. And Florida, of course, many of the counties have switched over. So a lot of people, once you explain how it works, and a lot of people aren't even aware that that can be done, then I find more people are like, oh, that makes sense, you know. So I have found people to be favorable myself in talking to people.
All right, anything else, colleagues? All right, thank you, Ms. Lambert.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. All right, so the next card I have is for Ms. Peggy Mitchell, who also lives in Fort Walton Beach, and she also wishes to speak about a referendum to change the method of selecting a school superintendent. Welcome, Ms. Mitchell.
Thank you. Thank you for letting us speak
I know you've been here
again.
before, and you know the
Yes.
routine. Okay, so
Thank
4
you.
minutes, and
Right.
you know the guidelines.
We are here for the referendum again, and I have a couple of questions to ask you. If you weren't satisfied with your cell phone service, would you change it for the better? If you weren't satisfied with your TV cable service, would you change that for the better? Well, our state decided to make some changes so that we would have better teachers. When I first moved here in '84, they decided that all teachers should have 20 hours of reading certification. Even though I taught remedial reading for 3 years, I did it because I became a better teacher. Then the state required all teachers to have 60 hours of ESOL training so that we would be better and more effective teachers for our students. Then they required just the English teachers, this is the state, to have 300 more hours so that we could teach ESOL students and be better, more effective teachers. Then the state required all teachers on a regular basis every 5 years to earn 125 course hours to renew our certification so that we remain effective teachers. Then they instituted a system of evaluation where we had to go through criteria to become classified either as highly affected or affected. And if not, we'd have to have more training. Throughout the course of the year, our county has gave us workshops, training, teacher work days in order to establish a better system of teaching to make us better, more effective teachers. So over the years, our county and our state has made changes for the better, to make better teachers. But our state has decided that there are only 3 requirements for a superintendent to be elected. Those are the 3 requirements, and it hasn't changed over the last 35 years and probably longer than that. I'm asking you as an educated group, is this satisfactory? Doesn't our county deserve a change? We just instituted all these highly qualified principals and assistant principals, and they had criteria off the charts, and yet that's it, 3 for an elected superintendent. These are the duties of an elected superintendent, pages and pages of statutes that they're required to implement for our county, and yet that's all they have to have. This is just a short list of recommendations for what our superintendent should have to have. Samantha alluded to that they need to be experienced, highly qualified, And you can set that. That's what's so exciting about this referendum. But you have to give the people a chance to vote for it. And then it's in your hands. Now, recently you've made a hard decision. You passed the Guardian Plan. And did you get a lot of phone calls in favor of that plan? Or did you make the decision because you knew it was the best for our kids, best for our teachers, best for our community? You didn't have to have somebody come up here and ask you to do that. You discussed it and you knew what was the best plan of action. And we're asking you to look at this referendum as the best plan of action. Now, Ms. Ivanchek alluded to the cost, and I had the question that if each of you has a discretionary fund, if each of you contributed $1,000 from your district, that could help pay for the referendum. But we also could do it as a community as well, to raise funds to, I think it was between $3,000 and $5,000 that Paul Luck said would be required. But we'd like to do this in a timely fashion. We know that,
You have 15 seconds, Ms. Mitchell.
well, I respectfully and earnestly ask you again, please be the leaders in this. Make a change for the good. Give the voters a chance to make a change for the better of our school system. And I appreciate your listening again. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Stand by in case
Okay.
there's any comments or questions.
Oh,
Colleagues?
I would like to hear that part about your timeline that you didn't have time to say. Could you please tell that?
Well, we think the best time is March 2020 referendum. Go ahead and give the people time to vote because, no offense, did it take you 6 months or 3 years to acquire the knowledge to hire these principals and assistant principals recently? You went out of state, you went out of county to find a qualified person. That did not take you 3 years to do. But again, the decision is up to you as a school board. We want the citizens to have a vote, and we think the sooner the better. Then you can put your plan of action on course. Then you can decide how to handle it from there. But we have the best confidence. That's why we selected all of you to serve on our school board. But I think it's a fair estimation to say that the sooner the better. You may not get 1,000 calls with people wanting this change. They don't know that you can make this change. I didn't know that either. And I've always thought, oh, the superintendent works hand in hand with the school board. No, that's not the way it is. You're an entity, the superintendent's an entity, and basically we've seen superintendent can do just about anything they want. And we've been lucky so far, having good superintendents over the course of the years since I've been here in '84. But is that what we're running on, luck? Sooner or later, our luck's going to run out. And we're going to experience more difficulties unless we can make a change for the better. And I really do believe this is a change for the better. But it's in your hands. It's your decision, obviously.
I just have one comment, and it's the comment about the requirement to be superintendent as an elected person. I think it's fair to say, though, that any elected position in the state of Florida has the same requirement, not just superintendent.
Okay, that's a fair statement. Yes, sir.
So I just want to make sure that that message is being told, too. So if you're not happy with a sheriff who might not have had any sheriff experience but met those qualifications, would that be the same cost, maybe have an appointed sheriff or something down the line? I'm just saying, I just want to make sure that the message is getting out that any elected office has the same requirement.
I
than
understand.
not just the superintendent.
Yes.
So,
Thank you, and that's absolutely
yes.
correct. Yes.
Okay.
And they all have 4 years to serve.
Yes.
And they can only be removed with the governor.
Right.
So, and nobody else has any recourse unless they're found guilty of a crime, which I think in our county we've had a few sheriffs having problems.
Anything else, colleagues?
I would just say I appreciate the passion of your group.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
As far as the money that we have that we can spend, that can only be spent on capital projects, not on elections. And the only advice I would have is the 3,000 to 5,000 that would take to put this on the ballot is a very small amount compared to what it would take to get it passed. So I would advise your group to come up with a plan if you're going to go forward, because the rubber hits the road when it's time to convince people that that's the
Yes,
thing
and we
to
do
vote for.
have a plan of action. If you get it on the referendum, we have a plan of educational action for all the community organizations,
Okay.
non-political. So keeping out of politics.
All right, anything else? I just have one comment,
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell, and I understand the role and the purpose of an advocacy group. And I think it's fair to say that this is an advocacy group, that
Yes.
you're advocating for a certain position. I have had communication with folks that have said that they really don't perceive it as necessarily as an advocacy position, as so much as letting the people, the voters of the county, offer their cue or their opinion, if you will, about an appointed or an elected superintendent. Without it being an advocacy position, it's simply a matter of asking the voters what they think. And we may all have our own opinions about what they think, but that's one way to find out for sure. Anything else, colleagues?
Well, we've had this group come to us now 3 times in the last few weeks and talk about this. As one school board member, I am not prepared to vote to put this, for this referendum one way or the other. I think we need more information. The 4-minute is a challenge. They get certain things in. So what I would like to see, if my fellow board members are amenable, I'd like to see a separate meeting where Mr. Ryan and maybe these other 2 could actually have some time. I know he had mentioned, Mr. Ryan did, that he had a PowerPoint to talk about both sides, and maybe have a meeting, or perhaps after a workshop, if we could have a meeting with them and let them go through the whole thing instead of coming to several meetings and getting piecemeal information. And then that way, we can decide if we have enough information to move forward or end it. So, is that something I can make a motion for?
Well, I guess the first thing, Mr. Attorney, is I would turn
Okay.
to our legal counsel and ask. I mean, am I hearing a proposal for a separate workshop?
No.
Like we do with budget, for example?
Not necessarily. I was thinking after a workshop, when we end a workshop, have some time to let them come and explain all the information, show us the PowerPoint, something like that. And so we wouldn't be making any legal recommendation. That would be an informational. Because I just think that coming to board meetings and having that just, we've heard them now 3 times. We generally know the things, but there's information they can't get to in that short a time. So could we have a meeting where we can get all the information and then either put this thing to bed or move with it or whatever we decide to do as a board?
It's about a 10-minute PowerPoint presentation with a lot of really good statistics that I don't think that you're aware of.
And if you're not proposing that you would vote at that session, then it would be like a workshop meeting where there would not be any voting, but you could receive information, have discussion. That would be a workshop.
Right, I would see it as a discussion, not a time to vote, just to get information. Is that something I have to make a motion to get done, or?
Well, you can. I mean, I can
Can.
see that, but let's just kick it around just a
Sure.
little bit more. So I think an argument in favor of what the board member's proposing is that this is a unique type situation where we have an advocacy group that is proposing some, for what amounts to a legislative change, and proposing a referendum. And I'm groping for another example where we've done something like this. I'm trying to remember on the half-cent sales tax, if we gave those folks additional time, because that too was an advocacy group proposing that. And for those reasons, I'm not having any trouble with it unless legal counsel advises us.
No, certainly the board can conduct a workshop on a matter.
It can just be on a workshop
Okay.
that we already had scheduled.
That's
just
right.
to-
If it's only a 10-minute presentation, we can tack it
You're
on to
good-
the end
you
of
guys
another
are-
one.
You're good with that? Okay.
I
you're-
have no problem listening to citizens groups.
Okay.
Thank you.
I get it. I understand. So do we need a motion, or do I see enough affirmation
If you have
here?
a consensus as chairman, you can just put it on the next scheduled workshop as an item.
Okay. Okay.
It
Is that
would not,
good?
it wouldn't
That
be
good for
on
y'all?
there as a voting
Okay.
item, it would just be on there as an informational
For
item.
discussion at a workshop, okay?
And that
So
would
you
give
see-
them enough time to make their presentation?
That's how I see it.
Okay.
And
She
yeah,
said she
sure.
only
Well, the
needed
fa-
10 minutes, so.
Well, the fact that it would actually be on the agenda, that gives them
More
to
time.
explain it.
Right.
Right. They're not on the public request side of it.
Would that be
That would
helpful,
be great.
Ms. Mitchell?
That
Now,
would be
we
great.
don't have another actual workshop for a while because of
Yeah.
the holiday. We're going right into a board meeting on the 8th,
That's right.
so then we'd have to wait. It's going to be a while.
Well, that would give them a month to be prepared, so I think that's fair that they'll have
Yeah,
a month to be
I
prepared.
agree.
Would it be proper to send you our PowerPoint slides, presentation, and some of the information we have gathered individually, so you could read over it?
You have an easier way to ask questions if you'd seen the material.
Sure.
Might make it more
Because
efficient.
we might want to come back to the next board meeting.
Right.
Time is a little bit of the essence, obviously, if
Right,
we want to aim for March
right.
2020.
Well, and that's a piece that, and I know council is looking at the legal communication, and he's also looking at dates and in communication with the supervisor of elections, but at some juncture, in my mind, your group is going to have to give a specific timeline with actions. Because, I mean, the board, we don't know what those dates and times are. We're looking at those, but I'm just suggesting that there be a timeline so that we understand what it is and when it is the action that you're asking for.
Okay.
So
And-
that if your goal is to get it on, when did you say?
March 2020.
All right. If
That's a
your goal
primary
is
ballot.
To get it on the, so what are the deadlines where that has to be done by for that to occur? I mean, the communication with the county commissioners, all of those things that
And,
have.
and we have done that already. We do
Okay.
we do have the timeline.
Okay, well, that's something that
We
you'd
could
want
share
to-
it more with you.
And that's what you could present
Okay.
that day that you come back to us.
Okay.
Because ultimately, it's my understanding, the way to, if it was going to get on the ballot, it has to come through us first, right?
Yes. And then it has to go through the county commissioner.
We're going to have to address this, so
Well,
seems to me,
and let me just carry that a step further.
Yeah.
So in my mind, unless the council advises otherwise, what that means is that you are looking for a board member to make your motion, followed by a second.
Yes.
Followed by discussion, followed by a vote.
Yes. That's what we're looking for.
And I think on the timeframe, Dr. White, it was mentioned at a couple of board meetings that September is what they're looking, September, October is what they're hoping we make a decision on.
Well, actually, if you could make it closer to August 1st, because
See.
Paul Lux does have to have it, I think, 90 to 180 days
And-
out from the election to
and
get
I-
all the paperwork done and the voting
And I think
manufactured.
with Ms. Ivanchek's suggestion of having y'all on the agenda, you know, and to have that time frame, I mean, I think hopefully y'all would be prepared.
Oh, yes, definitely.
So, and I think by offering that particular,
Oh, yeah,
that should,
that's wonderful. I really, really appreciate it. Yes.
All right, and so for me, again, what you're asking for, and I get the fact that you have a position, but the way that some folks will view this is that it's simply an opportunity to let the people make their choice. Not that necessarily, if, say I were to vote for it, not that I'm in support of it, but I would be in support of letting people make that choice, make that
And
call.
that's our premise. Put it on the ballot, let the voters decide, and then we will know. And then the course of action for the school board will follow.
All right.
So,
Any questions or comments about that?
Oh, I'm torn between my general inclination to always want elected officials
I
to
know.
be elected,
I know.
and the belief that it's also a good idea to let folks
I know.
have a vote.
I know.
So I'm still kind of
I know.
on the fence.
That's right.
But but I would point out that the date of the proposed election, 2020, 2022, that is completely at discretion of this board.
That's true, too.
Right.
Very, very much so.
Exactly. That would
There-
be-
There's
March or
no
November.
necessary compulsion
Equally.
for a decision to be made in accordance with their
Exactly.
timeline.
Right.
yes.
That's right.
Yes.
But I think it's fair that we let them have their say.
And I see complete affirmation at this table for that to happen, so
Okay.
I guess we'll just schedule that then.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you,
you.
Ms. Mitchell. All right, so now, let's move on through the agenda. We go to committee and staff reports. Of course, we covered those in our workshop. 7.1 was in-county travel. and 7.2 was out-of-county travel. And moving forward to consent agenda with the changes, of course, that I read. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll move that.
Motion by Mr. Destin.
I'll second.
Second by Dr. Kelly. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. All right, so scroll on down, and this is a lengthy one. And we'll come to Section 9. 9.1, employees on administrative leave, presented by Dr. Lee Hale, Assistant Superintendent. Again, that's an item for information. 9.2, Deferred Retirement Option Program, presented by Dr. Lee Hale, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources. That's another item for information. And then 9.3, out of field report for 2018-2019 school year, presented by Mrs. Karen Peak, Program Director, Professional Services, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. And so this requires action, so I'm looking for a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bryant.
Second.
Second by Mr. Destin. Any discussion?
Just real quick, I see Karen's out in the audience, and just a thank you to her and her team for all that they do all year round to try to keep these positions filled with the proper certifications and all. So thank you, Karen.
All right, so we need to call the question. So all in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Moving on now to 9.4, where I already was. Administrative, managerial, and professional technical personnel recommendations for school year 2019-2020, presented by Dr. Lee Hale, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Need a second?
I'll second it.
All right, motion by Mr. Destin, second by Ms. Vanchek. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. 9.5, personnel recommendations presented by Dr. Lee Hale, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval.
I'll move.
Motion by Dr. Kelly,
Second.
second by Mr. Bryant. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. 9.6, employment separations presented by Dr. Lee Hale, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Need a motion?
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Bryant.
I'll second.
Second, Dr. Kelly. Any discussion? All right, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. 9.7, employee transfers presented by Dr. Lee Hale, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, and recommended by the Superintendent. I need a motion.
Dr. White, before we
Yes, sir.
make that motion, I will be recusing myself from this vote because I do have a family member on that separation list. And I have filled out the proper paperwork, too.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bryant.
I will make that motion. then.
Motion by Mr. Destin. Need a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Vanchek. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. Motion carries 4-0. 9.8, reinstatement reimbursement of sick leave due to line of duty illness, injury, medical examination presented by Dr. Lee Hale, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Need a motion?
I'll move that one be approved.
Motion, Mr. Destin.
I'll second it.
That's another tie.
Linda got
All
it.
right, all right, we'll go with Ms. Vanchek for the second. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Then 9.9, leave without pay presented by Dr. Lee Hale, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bryant,
Second.
second by Dr. Kelly. Any discussion? All right, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. All right, so, all right. 10.1, ITB 19-08 canopy bid, district-wide, presented by Mr. Vince Linden, Program Director, Purchasing, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. So I need a motion.
So moved.
And I'm sorry, I
Yeah,
was
that's okay.
daydreaming. This is
No,
our
no.
canopy?
Yes, sir. This is the canopies that we talked about, the cost and so forth.
Okay, and-
This is
and-
the bid, I believe.
Ms. Horton, if you would,
Okay, sure.
I asked that this be moved so that we could consider, we were trying to dig around and find more money that we can direct toward our security upgrades. And as I looked through the list, the first year expenditure was how much?
On the canopy project,
Mhm.
under the bid, it was, I think, $570,000 roughly.
Right, and the project is over a number of years.
Yes, sir.
And our proposal to spend the first year was how much?
Well, the total over the 4 years was, I think, 1.7 million. And so
Right.
the first year would have been under this bid about 500 and, I don't have it in front of me, 570,000. I think I sent a spreadsheet to the board members.
Okay. And we kind of kicked around the idea of perhaps several alternatives. If I recall, one was to have our own folks work on it as they could because they have other jobs, but that would be a substantial savings. I don't want to completely abandon the project, but this money, I think, needs to be redirected, at least in the short term, toward our security upgrades. So do you have a recommendation? Do we have an estimate of what it would cost to have our people work on it? And at what rate? I know they have other things to do. I'm trying to see what our options are.
Can I just jump in there?
Absolutely.
So I remember from the workshop that there was some discussion about maybe redirecting funds.
Right.
Yes.
Can I jump
Yes,
in
ma'am,
there?
please, Dr. Tilley. Go
And
ahead.
I think that I suggested and talked with several people about the potential for moving the 75,000 that I think Mrs. Thrush, who previously held this seat, had asked to go towards that project, if we could now redirect that. I actually found, while I was a candidate, I was sitting in a seat out there and was at that meeting, and I actually found the November 13th, 2018 document there where that was on the agenda. So I think that we discovered that we could, with a motion, maybe redirect those funds, if I recall correctly. Is that right?
What you would do is typically the board member that made the allocation, which now would be you,
All right.
would bring it back to the board and say that you wanted to redirect it to whatever other project you
Okay.
wanted to.
Okay,
So
so
is
we're
that-
talking about 75, or we're talking about the full $500,000?
I think from Dr. Kelly's perspective, it's the 75, and I think, Mr. Destin, you may have
He has
contributed
others.
15,000 to it.
That's correct.
The rest of it was just based on some estimates set aside in the capital budget.
Yeah, and they were estimates that were set aside, but that money is available, correct?
The total amount that currently is available is 200 and some odd thousand. 75 of it is Dr. Kelly's money, 15,000 is your money, and the difference is district money that's in there right now currently for the 18-19.
And that's exactly the amount I was trying to get to. If we put the project off for a year, that is the amount that's available to go toward the security upgrades?
Right now, currently right now.
Okay, Ms. Kelly, if you.
Okay,
want
so
to make a
I
motion.
would make the motion then that the funds, 75,000 from District's 5 seat, be redirected from canopies towards security.
And the 15,000 from my contribution, and the additional money that brings it up to approximately 200?
And can we do this? Can we just go ahead and have an agenda item just like we normally traditionally do?
Absolutely.
And then on the same agenda for both of y'all, and then that will document and cover what
That sounds wonderful. So the appropriate motion now would simply be to,
would be to reject the bid. if
That's
you're
exactly
going
it.
forward.
Just, yeah, go ahead, yeah.
So would,
Yep.
Mr. Bryant has a motion on the floor, would you want to withdraw that?
Yeah, I will withdraw it. I just,
All right, so looking for a motion to reject the bid then.
so moved.
Motion by Mr. Destin,
I'll second.
second by Dr. Kelly. Any discussion?
just real quick, we did get an email from Mr. Horton regarding some of the canopy projects that were priority. And I believe that was Longwood, Shalimar, I'm trying to remember the other few that were on there.
Year one?
Yes, sir. The year one were based on board
Edwards,
member
Laurel
input
Hill.
at the time about any ESC classrooms that were in portables, that those be moved toward the front, year one for priority.
And meanwhile, while we're cleaning this up with another agenda item, can you bring us back at least a really rough estimate of what we can do in-house?
Yes, sir. So I think that was the other point I wanted to just make sure is we have talked to our facilities folks and the ability to do some welding. Obviously, that takes the labor, direct outside labor costs out of the equation, so then it would just be materials. And I would advocate us continuing to move forward internally to the extent that we can to do some of this work. Yes, sir, we can do that. We'll bring that back to you.
Okay.
Well, and also real quick, just to follow up on a concern that I've had even back in November was the amount of money that we would spend on canopies, and mostly that was going more directed to ESE classes that were out in portables. Would it be cost effective if we come up with a plan over the next year to move those children inside a traditional school, the school setting, to save the money on making a canopy for, doing a canopies for ESC students, because I know that's where we were driving it at, was the ESC population, so.
Yes, sir. And so I'd absolutely work with curriculum in the schools to have those discussions. And I think, as I mentioned to you, one of the schools had done that already this year, I think, and moved those classrooms into the building. So that's something we certainly will work with the curriculum department and the ESC department and the principals to look at going forward, if you'd like.
All right, so we got a motion? Motion by, and we got a second?
Yes, sir.
So is it, and the intent of rejection of this bid is to move those monies to school safety?
Schools,
Is that correct?
security upgrades,
All right.
exactly.
Which Ms. Callis asked, though, that we'll achieve
I
by a
understand.
separate motion on
Yes,
another
I
agenda.
understand, but I want to make sure we all know what we're voting for and maybe
Yes, sir.
why we're voting for it. All right, so unless there's any further discussion, I'm ready to call the question. All right. All in favor of rejecting the bid, let's vote. All right. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Horton. All right, and so we're going to handle the other item through agenda, and that takes us down to section 11, program status report by the board's representative to the construction program. Mr.
Yes, sir,
Dessner.
and having just alluded to that, scope modification number 2 is also a modification of security upgrades, and the other 2 are pretty typical. So
Okay.
unless you have questions, that I would turn over to Dr. Smith, who is an expert in this field.
All right. Well, if we have questions, then we'll handle them one by one as we move through each item, okay?
Sounds good.
All right, 11.2, scope modification number 2 to TPM program number 6, task order number 2, pre-GMP district-wide school security upgrade project phase 1, presented by Dr. Bill Smith, specialist, facilities planning and maintenance, and recommended by the superintendent for approval. So I need a motion.
I will move that we approve that.
Motion, Mr. Destin.
Second.
Second, Mr. Bryan. Any discussion? All right, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to 11.3, Program 6, Task Order Number 3, GMP for Flowosa Elementary School Parent Pickup Relocation Traffic Flow Reconfiguration, presented by Dr. Bill Smith, Specialist, Facilities Planning and Maintenance, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Need a motion?
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Destin.
Second.
Second, Mr. Bryan. Any discussion?
Just want to say that, again, Dr. Smith, thank you for working on that. I talked with Ms. Massey today, and you've indicated that the plan is to have that ready for start of school, which this has been worked on for a long time, and she's excited to make that change for that safety out there, so thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vanchek. So, any more discussion? Let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0.
Before we move on, Dr.
Sure.
White, I just have one
Sure.
comment I would like to say to my
Sure.
fellow board member here, Mr. Destin, on the construction side. Thank you to you and everybody that's been working hard. It's been really a good thing to see how much is really moving through since you were put on the construction side. But I know there's a lot more people that have been behind the scenes too. But it's just great to
Absolutely.
see all the things that are
And
that are
and I
moving along.
appreciate the accolade, but it's the staff that works at this stuff day in and day out, and it's they who are carrying the burden.
All right, thank you. All right, so moving on to Section 12, Information Technology Seat Management 12.1. CACI Task Order Number 2-135, installation of 30 data drops at Pryor Middle School for a new IT lab, presented by Mr. Dustin Keith, Specialist, Seat Management, and recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Need a motion.
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Bryant.
Second.
Second, Mr. Destin. Any discussion? All right, let's vote. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. 12.2, CACI Task Order Number 2-137, AI Phone Video Intercom System, presented by Mr. Dustin Keith, Specialist, Seat Management, recommended by the Superintendent for approval. Need a
I'll
motion?
move.
Motion, Dr. Kelly.
Second.
Second, Ms. Vanchek. Any discussion?
Just real quick, I
Yes,
see
sir.
Dustin's out in the audience there. Thank you to you and your team. I know y'all are working very hard this summer to get all the IT projects up to date for our schools, and thank you to you and your team.
Are all the phone systems now okay? Because I know at Choctaw they were still having some problems. I'm assuming. Okay, sorry. I didn't mean to throw you off, but
No, it's fine. we still have, issues pop up from time to time. Anytime you put, 4,000 some odd devices out there, we work those through the help desk, and then we get them taken care of. So,
And that's for the phones?
yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I'm asked you the other day, but just for public, the summer school's going great with all the stuff, right?
Summer school is going great. We're finishing it up, and we've had no technology issues.
Thank you, yeah.
All summer.
Yeah.
And that's great, because
Not done yet.
I actually worked
Almost.
that summer school when we had days when it was not so good, but thank
Yes,
you
ma'am.
for keeping up on that. That's very important.
Yes, ma'am. It takes a team. Brandon McSween is running
Yes.
summer school, and he's doing a great job
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
And Teleforce, of course.
Yes, thank
All
you.
right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, sir. All right, so, let's go ahead now and call the question. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. All right, Mr. Attorney, your business, sir.
No report.
All right, Superintendent, your business, sir.
I appreciate it. I was speaking to a group the other day about safety, and we were talking about where safety is the number one priority. But it's easy to say that safety is the number one priority. It sounds good, but when there's action behind those words, that's when things are even better. So I do appreciate the board. I do appreciate your concerted effort on safety, and even tonight, basically moving funds to help with that effort. I think right now we're in the midst of phase 1, and I think that is a good thing. And even to the point where safety is important, looking at phase 2 being something that we start sooner rather than later, and I think you'll see that coming to be as well. And I do appreciate Mr. Destin, the board as well, asking us to even look at, can we do that? So safety, as I was talking to this group, it's not just simply a catchphrase that it's our number one priority, but it's actually action and doing the things that we need to do for our students. So I appreciate that support. Secondly, I will say, as you know, ESE has been an emphasis of ours over the last number of months, specifically dealing with the Department of Education coming in and then changes that we might make to make our ESE program even better. And I am happy with the fact that tonight is another step towards that, with a person that will be over ESE and student services, and have this month of July to really meet with our staff and get things moving in terms of some of the changes that you'll see in ESE and student services as we go into the next school year. I think we have a staff right now that's currently in place that is doing a good job, and a staff that is committed to our students on the ESE side and student services side. And I think with this addition with Dr. Willis Doxey, that we're going to take this ESE program to another level, and that's something that I'm extremely excited about. As we go forward, you'll hear more and more about CTE. And we've talked about this with our principals, we've talked about this with the public. As you know, the governor has made a stance that by the year 2030, that the state of Florida is #1 in CTE in the nation. And when it comes to Okaloosa County, we don't necessarily want to wait till 2030, but we want to be a part of that mission. And as you know, in Okaloosa County, our middle school and our high schools have done a great job with CTE over the years, specifically to the benefit of our students. But when you look at industry certs and the amount of money that generates, we've done a very good job. But we've talked about how do we get even better? How do we connect even more so to our local to our local economy and to our local businesses? And that's something that you'll see with the advanced manufacturing program, for example. But I'm proud to say at the elementary level, you'll see more and more CTE programs in the 2019 school year. And you'll see that starting to pop up even more so. So our principals, each and every elementary is planning for CTE programs, whether that be creative scheduling during the school day or whether that be before or after school programs. So excited about that. And the last thing I do want to reiterate, I did share some other things, but I said those on Thursday, but I will reiterate the fact that, as you know, just once again, we were designated a academically high-performing school district for the 2017-18 school year, and the data that comes with that, and that's also the financial audits, and that's also the class size compliance. And that leads into this week, we're anticipating those school results to come out for the FSA and the state EOCs. So we are eagerly looking forward to those results coming out. And I do want to say, and I agree with the nice lady who came forward and talked about the school grades and the data, and the credit absolutely does go to our classroom teachers who do the lion's share of the work and do a great job working with our students. So at this time of the year, there's excitement to see the fruits of the labor, but also, like I say, this isn't about school grades. It's not about the data that comes back, but it is about doing what's best for our kids and helping push them forward, whether that be to graduation or the next grade level.
Very good. Thank you, Superintendent. All right, board members' business. Mr. Destin, if you have anything.
Oh, I just asked the school board secretary to put the proposal for our environmental study so everyone can review it.
Excellent.
That's all I have, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Bryant.
Just real quick to follow up on Mr. Chambers and CTE, Governor DeSantis signed that bill into law today that requires the career technical planning, counseling, and also the financial classes for the students in high school. So I think that's a good thing in the right direction to prepare our kids. And like you said, if we can get those children to stay interested in school, whether it be through college-bound track or a CTE track, getting that diploma is the most important thing. And if we can continue to offer those programs out there, starting at that elementary level, that's going to be a win-win for us. And by 2030, I would hope that our graduation rate will be close to, be optimistic. Let's shoot for 100%.
Absolutely.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Dr. Kelly.
I'll just tag on to something Superintendent Chambers said. I want you to take note that my very first expenditure when I took office was for safety, for bullet-resistant glass. So just remember that when you're saying that. Also, just remember that today, I think, kicked off a STEM program at Destin Middle School for rising fifth graders, a free STEM camp. So if your students haven't taken advantage of that, you might want to look into it. And tomorrow, I believe, is the graduation, for lack of a better word, celebration for the end of our Summer Scholars program as well. And that's at Beachside Community Church, I think, right across the street from Pryor. I think that's correct. And also, since we won't meet between now and then, the Dr. Sue Educational Foundation Thinkers Camp is July 1st through the 3rd. So that'll be something interesting for our thinkers. And just because it's fun to say, we are now 50 days out from students going back to school.
Who's counting?
I know. Those are always fun times to think. That's all I have.
All right. All right, Dr. Kelly. Mr. Vanche.
Yes. Mr. Chambers, I want to just follow up on something you talked about on the safety and security, the mental health piece that we approved out of Title IV, Ms. Ellis, some more counselors and that. Can you tell me, or can you have one of your staff tell me about the training that I hear all the teachers are going to have to be going to? I believe it's right when school starts, or I'm not even sure, but I just understand that teachers have to have that training. Can you help me with that?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Lightbourne?
Hey, Ms. Lightbourne.
So we've actually started that training. Every
okay.
employee has to have the youth mental health training. Custodians, teachers, front office staff, every employee.
Oh.
So we have had assistant principals trained, we have had principals trained, and we've had several open teacher trainings. Some of the schools have also already established the date that they will train. We have, I believe it's 8 to 12 certified trainers in the district, and each of those folks have to do 3 trainings to keep up their certification in order to stay a trainer.
Mm-hmm.
So that training will go on throughout the year to try and get everybody trained. The youth mental health training, it's a program, and the program itself only allows for 30 people at a time to be trained in a training, and it is it was an 8-hour training, and then the state said we can't do 8 total hours, so can we get it to 6? So they did give us a 6-hour option. So it's a 6-hour training, but they only allow 30 people at a time. So that doesn't even do an entire faculty or staff.
Right.
So you have to have multiple at schools, et cetera. So it will take us throughout the year. The state has also talked about having some virtual training, but that has not come to fruition at this time. So we are starting the process, and we're training everybody we can as we can.
Is this a one-time training, or do they have to every year be updated, or
As
right now,
of
what's the
now,
requirement?
what I'm aware of is the program is a one-time, but I'm pretty certain that there'll probably be some follow-up with it. It's usually never one time, but as of now,
Right.
I think the big concern is to get everybody through the one time, which will take us at least a year, maybe longer, and bigger districts even have a harder task than we do.
And you said every employee, does that include like bus drivers and?
I believe so.
Oh, wow, that is an
Yeah.
undertaking, but
Yes.
that's an important one.
Yes.
That we need. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Just the only other thing I'm going to bring, not you, I'm going to bring out, we are ending summer school. It doesn't seem possible that we've gotten through that. And I mentioned the other day, but just to reiterate, the Public Schools Foundation will be doing Cram the Van. It's always important to get those school supplies to those students that can't afford those, so be watching out for that. And we're also, if you'd like to, anyone out there would like to donate to the Take Stock in Children scholarships, we're always doing that. And it's our nation's birthday coming up, so I'm sure I'm wishing everybody a safe and enjoyable 4th of July. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Ivanchek. All right, colleagues, so I'm ready to conclude this meeting unless there's, public comment. We haven't. Is there anyone else that wishes to address the school board? So again, I'm ready to conclude this meeting unless there's any other business that we need to talk about. We good? We good here? All right. Staff, anything? All right. This meeting is adjourned.
Rather push-pull going on.
Yes.